Hello everyone and welcome back to another Gundam video. Today we're going to be going over a headline that's just come out, and this is news that Bandai apparently wants to make Gundam an esport. This is an interview from the Gundam Breaker and Gundam anime series producers. This interview I'm going to post it up in the description. It's on frontline.jp, and basically it says that they're covering similarities between the video games and anime that portray the worlds in where people can customize Gundam kits and participate in virtual battles. And they say that part of the influence in this decision is Build Fighters Try and Build Divers, and the fact that they're akin to eSports, and they acknowledge that, you know, we've built it this way deliberately, and saying that model kits themselves have greatly improved over the last 40 years, and the entertainment factor of building the kits and enjoying them after completion, you know, it's remained for ages. For better or for worse, unchanged, because kids these days have far more options in entertainment. But apparently, the Gundam Breaker series was also a major influence in that. Owagawa says that the biggest response, however, was overseas to all of this. While many fans in Japan like the Universal Century, the Gundam series and its long history has made it hard to spread overseas, but Build Fighters can be enjoyed by a viewer without knowing the history of Gundam, and by having Gunpla and Gundams not as the focus. Gunpla sold better overseas as well. He mentions how people bought their own model kits when they had held a Build Fighters event in America, and that he was happy on how Build Fighters became a gateway to Gundam and Gunpla for many people. Usui adds that many fans overseas say that Build Fighters is their favourite series, and says that he thinks that without Build Fighters, not many people would have made customizations like combining GMs and Zaku's. And it makes this more common. What makes this more common and amazing is this. Owagawa says that because this is doing that in ways that other series would require some additional reasoning behind it, which would have been criticized by fans, and that having it as a hobby, like in the Build series, allows them to bypass this for huge merit. So they're aiming at esports now, which I don't normally think is a good thing for companies, mainly because it can go terribly wrong. One good example of this was the Halo series, where they really tried to cater very heavily to the esports market with Halo 4 and Halo 5, and they did not do well because of the diminishing returns from the Halo series after it changed hands. Apparently, Rommel, for example, from Build Divers, is particularly popular, says the series PR manager, who is a woman, has been saying that they should release a 1-to-1 scale Rommel plush toy because overseas markets. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see whether their approach affects anything in terms of sales. They are literally just doing this for the sake of trying to be a gateway to more people, which is fun. I really don't see where this is going at the moment. Owagawa is asked about how the Build Fighters series was planned, and he says that the proposal first surfaced about when the Gundam 00 movie was completed. Then they had received a proposal for Gundam Age. Bandai's hobby division later contacted them, saying that they could do an anime series similar to the one that they made for the 30th anniversary, which was Gunpla Builders, which not many people remember now. It was the experience of making Age that made Build Fighters possible, namely the attempts in having children watch Gundam and creating mixed media with the contents at its core, because they did do a lot of different things, like the Tri-Age cards for Age. Build Fighters targeting children and having game ideas oriented with Age, he says he felt like Build Fighters, or with Build Fighters, he wanted to do what Age couldn't, and mentions Age's gauging battle base. So yeah, this comes from the IC chips that were in the toys. I don't know whether this is them messing around and trying to experiment with whether they can make Gunpla Battle into something that could be potentially real in the future, even if it's like virtual reality based or something, where they put new chips in the kits or whatever, and then you can customize those. I don't know whether it'd be similar to like Amiibo or whatever. I don't know where this is going. Let's carry on here. When asked whether it was difficult having that many Gundam series in one show, Owagara says that he had to be careful about balancing them because each series is passionate, has passionate fans, and that portraying things wrongly might result in unnecessary conflict. Ultimately, they aim to portray the game as one that could be enjoyed by anyone, which is fair enough. They've not like gone overboard with anything in Build Divers yet, which is great. It's a really good representation of the entire franchise in terms of how evenly they've balanced things. Ogawa says that the biggest response, however, overseas was... Yeah, that's the bit that I've read out before. How kits selling unexpectedly like Gyan with Build Fighters is brought up by Utsui, and Ogawa says that this was the first time for them as well. None of the profits made from the Gyan sales made it back to the studio. This was changed so that the money from kit sales could go back into the studio for Build Fighters Try. With most of the staff being Gunpla fans, the biggest reward for them was having the Gunpla that they made turn up as actual kids and bought by children. Okay, fair enough. Build Fighters was initially requested to be 50 episodes long, but in the current animation industry, few companies can handle a robot anime on that scale. And they didn't know how the audience would react, so they cut it to 25. Build Fighters Try is remaining with 25 episodes. The interview moves on to the Gundam Breaker series, which Utsui says was released at an abnormal pace. Gundam Breaker was not yet released when Build Fighters aired in 2013, but it had been planned for the same time with the hobby elements included, which meant Ogawa and Utsui met frequently. They discussed this and how it would have been better for the Build and Breaker series to share the same setting. So they were planning on doing something similar to the new Gundam Breaker anyway. So this tells you early on that they were planning on some sort of anime crossover very similar to what we've got with the storyline so far, which people don't really like, so I'm sure they're going to go back on that idea now and think a little bit differently about it. The interview moves on to Build Divers, and Ogawa says that due to Build Fighters being a hit, Gunpla sales remained well, and that Bandai Hobby requested that it be turned into a series. Build Divers was planned. The interviewer inquires on how Build Divers is a complete reboot of the setting. Ogawa says that this is because they thought that it would have to change something if they made a new anime while they were making Try. This is because, like older Gundam series, the existing Build Fighters was becoming too big and starting to have people think of how things should be. Making a new anime with the same setting would just have the risk of becoming a show for existing fans that would not function as a gateway, so they wanted Build Divers to be a new gateway into this, kind of similar to how Try and the original was. Interviewer inquires about some online game elements in Divers and says that this was Watada Shinya's idea. Additionally, the biggest achievement and problems with the Build series is making its viewers want to have their own Gunpla battles, but with Build Fighters and Build Fighters Try settings, this would probably not be possible in the lifetimes of anyone involved. So yeah, they do want to try this at some point in the future. Build Divers was thus planned with the possibility of realization in mind. Build Divers writer Kimura Nobura and Build Fighters and Build Fighters Try series writer Kuruda Yosuke were brought in to discuss their own experiences with online games and came up with the idea. In the vein of common things in online games, the interviewer also inquires about a line spoken by Ayame in episode 7, which made it sound like SD Gundam users in the world are unpopular, and if it is supposed to be like how there are some specific job classes in online games that are unpopular. Ogawa says that because SD Gundams are completely different in size from regular Gunpla, this means that they have shorter ranges, and also that most of the moves are predictable after being seen once, meaning that they're at a clear disadvantage in battle. Additionally, SD Gundam is abnormally popular with a small group of fans, which is, for better or worse, very passionate, meaning that players in the world that use SD Gundams have many problems finding groups to join. Usui adds that while SD Gundams appear in Gundam Breaker 3, the reason why they're not playable and are instead AI-controlled companions is because of the same problems Ogawa mentioned regarding their range of moves. Okay, fair enough. So they've obviously spent a lot of time and effort thinking up of all of these things. The interviewer next asks about the intentions of the unprecedented character designs like Rommel. Ogawa states that they introduced fantasy elements to try and get not just Gundam fans, but also anime and video game fans alike. Well, they definitely did that. And that goes on to mention about the Rommel plushie. When asked about the amount of freedom they have with creating build divers, they say it's decreased from build fighters. Ogawa says it would have been better to say that they have to spend more time thinking about things due to the higher expectations, which is something we've been going on about recently anyway. They also have to balance the aura and of trying to sell products so that the show does not turn into a commercial. The interviewer asks if Gunpla, like Super Fumina, would end up being in build divers eventually. Ogawa says that while an avatar that looks similar might soon appear, it would be pretty hard to portray something similar in build divers because it would have to be shown as a player piloting the mobile suit. Oh, I see. So what they're trying to say is potentially that the suit that, what is it, Nami or whoever pilots the new character style Gundam in build divers is potentially the Gundam itself. That's kind of weird. When asked if Build and Breaker series are now having similar settings was intentional, Usui says, well, acknowledges this and describes how both sides discuss about what to do, and the game developers' side's ultimate goal is to create a game like Build Divers, Gunpla Nexus Online, which would, of course, include eSports. Ogawa says that they will continue to produce new content that connects Gundam and Gunpla games, with the realization of Gunpla Battle that might even happen in 5 years. That's a crazy announcement. The interview concludes by Ogawa saying that Build Divers is a first step into something new, and that they might not be around to see Gunpla Battle Nexus Online realized, but they want to work to a future where it happens. So essentially they're planning it in real life, which is insane when you think about it. It's a pretty neat concept. I don't know whether it's just some crazy idea that they've decided for the show and then gone, you know what, let's actually try this and see if it's feasible. You don't know with technology advancing so rapidly. What do you guys think about all of this? If it worked out well in future, then maybe, like I said at the beginning, you have to be very careful with esports. I can imagine if it's incredibly popular and if it's something similar to how they've built up in Universe, then sure enough, it would be popular and people would have fun customizing the Gunpla and using them for battles. Will we see that in our lifetime? I honestly don't know. The interview seems to think that at least a video game version, maybe within the next 5 years. With the actual proper thing, maybe not in their lifetime. Anyway, I'll post this link for you guys to look at and post your comments down below. This is some crazy news. I'll see you next time.